Hey do-it-yourselfers, got a farm off here today. Today we're going to talk about some of the fastest street legal production vehicles out in the world today. And specifically I'm going to talk about the top 5 cars with the fastest 0 to 60 miles per hour. I'm not only going to show you 5 cars and talk excitedly about it, but also we're going to dig a little deeper and talk about the engineering and the mechanical aspects of the different components that allow these cars to travel at such high speeds. And we're excluding any fully electric or even any hybrid electric vehicles, because those guys are cheaters. Alrighty, so coming in at number 5 is the slowest of the bunch with a 0 to 60 miles per hour speed of 2.5 seconds. And it's none other than the Bugatti Veyron Super Sport. There's only 30 units of these made from 2010 to 2011. And they come with an 8.0 liter W16 quad turbocharged engine and a 7-speed direct shift gearbox automatic transmission. The engines on these cars produce 1200 horsepower and 1100 pound-feet of torque, and they have a curb weight of 4050 pounds. Alright, now as far as what a W16 engine is, well, it's a W-designed engine with 16 cylinders basically. Now a W-designed engine there's slight variations of these engines, but the one that's used in the Veyron basically has 2 banks very similar to a V6 or a V8. But on each bank, it has 2 rows of 4 cylinders which are staggered, and therefore giving each bank 8 cylinders and therefore a total of 16 cylinders. Now for those of you that are familiar with Volkswagen designed engines, this is very similar technology or design that was used for the VR6 engine used in the older Volkswagens. On those engines, which were 6 cylinders, you only had 2 rows of 3 cylinders each that were staggered, allowing for a single cylinder hit. But again, on these you have 2 banks. On each bank you have 2 rows of 4 cylinders that are staggered, allowing for 2 cylinder heads on each bank. But as if that was not enough, you also get a total of 4 turbos on this engine, 2 on each bank, making this a quad turbocharged W16 engine. Now, as one would expect for such a large engine, the RPM redline is not that high. It's only at 6,500 RPMs. But I guess that's the trade-off engineers have to make when they design these large engines that produce a lot of torque, but obviously at the same time produce a lot of heat and friction. Therefore, the RPM redline can't be that high, as opposed to a smaller engine that doesn't produce enough torque but can have a higher RPM redline. But obviously they did the math and it's not too bad. Also, something else Bugatti did was to use a lot of carbon fiber body panels, because the engine alone weighs almost 900 pounds, so they had to do whatever they could to reduce the overall weight of the vehicle. Also, they used the independent suspension and an all-wheel drive setup, which obviously improves traction, which then improves your launch and therefore your overall speed. Alright, up next, coming in at number 4 is a vehicle with a 0 to 60 miles per hour speed of 2.4 seconds, which is a Lamborghini Aventador Sv. There's only 600 units of these made, and they come with a 6.5 liter V12 engine and a 7-speed semi-automatic transmission. The engines on these cars produce 740 horsepower and 509 pound-feet of torque, and these vehicles have a curb weight of 3,900 pounds. Alright, so what's interesting about this engine is that it's naturally aspirated, which means it doesn't use forced induction either by turbocharger or supercharger. But what it does have is a high RPM redline at 8,500. And considering you get your maximum torque starting at 5,500 RPMs, this comes in real handy. And also the transmission on these cars, despite being a single clutch semi-automatic transmission, it can achieve gear shifts in 50 milliseconds, or in other words, 0.050 seconds. Yep, that's not even a tenth of a second. And again, similar to the Bugatti Veyron Super Sport, this Lamborghini Aventador uses a lot of carbon fiber body panels, both on the exterior and on the interior, to reduce the overall weight of this vehicle. And it too also has an all-wheel drive setup, which is controlled electronically, which again improves traction, that improves your launch and therefore your overall speed. Also, another very important factor that allows this vehicle to travel at such high speeds that it can is the aerodynamics of this vehicle. And in fact, the aerodynamics of the Aventador SVs, and SVs stands for super veloce in Italian, I believe, which in English means stupid fast. When you compare that to the regular Aventadors, it allows for 180% more downforce. And when you have more downforce, you have more traction, and when you have more traction, it allows for more efficient transfer of power from your engine and powertrain to your wheels and to the road, which means you go faster. Alright, so up next at number 3, it's even a faster vehicle. This one with a 0 to 60 miles per hour speed of 2.3 seconds. and it's none other than a Lamborghini Huracan Performante. These vehicles have a 5.2 liter V10 engine and a 7-speed dual clutch automatic transmission. The engines on these cars produce 631 horsepower and 443 pound-feet of torque, and these vehicles have a curb weight of 3,423 pounds. Alright, so how is it that this vehicle is faster than the previous two, even though it has a smaller engine at 5.2 liters? Well, for starters, the engine on this car has a high RPM redline at 8,500. It also has the ability of direct fuel injection in the combustion chamber and the multi-port fuel injection setup. This obviously varies based on driving conditions, but if you're not familiar with these setups, when you have the option of using direct fuel injection, under some conditions, this allows for a more even mixture of the air-fuel ratio that's going inside the combustion chamber. And when you have a more even mix of the air-fuel in the combustion chamber, it doesn't allow for any heat spots or therefore overall heat in the combustion chamber, which reduces knock. And when you can reduce knock, you can advance timing and even increase the compression ratio of the engine, all of which allow for increased horsepower and torque and more efficient use of the engine. Also, again, similar to the previous two vehicles, these Huracans also have all-wheel drive setups, again controlled electronically. But another important factor with these Huracan Performantes is that they use an active aerodynamic setup, which means, for example, the wing in the back of these cars can move and shift depending on driving conditions, which greatly improves the downforce on the tires or the wheels of this car in the rear especially. And in fact, the Huracan Performantes with this active aerodynamic capability have 750% more downforce when compared to the regular Huracans. But probably the most important factor that helps this car travel at such high speeds is that it weighs considerably less than the previous two at 3,423 pounds. Alright, so up next at number 2 is another vehicle that goes from 0 to 60 in 2.3 seconds, matching the speed of the Huracan Performante. But I put it at number 2 simply because it costs so much less. In fact, you can get these for under 100 grand these days, and it's none other than the Dodge Challenger SRT Demon. And these cars have a 6.2 liter supercharged V8 engine and an 8-speed automatic transmission. These engines produce 808 horsepower with 91 octane gas and 840 horsepower with 100 octane gas. And you also get about 770 pound-feet of torque when you use, again, 100 octane gas. And these vehicles have a curb weight of 4,255 pounds. Alright, so the SRT Demon is a more powerful wide-body version of a Dodge Challenger. It uses a larger supercharger at 2.7 liters and it weighs about 215 pounds less than the Hellcat, for example. Now, these SRT Demons don't have a super high RPM redline. It's only at 6,500 RPMs, and they're also rear-wheel drive and not an all-wheel drive like the previous vehicles. But even with that, they are the first cars sold in the US with street-legal drag racing radial tires. Now, these radial tires are super sticky and they greatly improve the efficiency of the transfer of power from your engine through your powertrain to your wheel and tires and to the road. Now, these cars also use another system specifically made for drag racing, which is called the trans brake. And basically what this does is puts your car both in first gear and the reverse gear at the same time, which helps build up hydraulic pressure in your torque converter, which obviously helps improve your launch speeds. Now, as one would guess, what seems to greatly help this car achieve the speeds that it can is the drag racing radial tires. Now, one thing you gotta keep in mind is that you can't really use drag racing tires on a car that's being used as a daily driver because they're so sticky, they're always leaving a bit of rubber behind them, doesn't matter the driving condition. So if you use them as a daily driver, they wear out, let's say, under 5,000 miles and you have to replace them, which again costs a lot of money. But what you can do is put regular street tires on these cars, but when you put regular street tires, you're not going to come anywhere near 2.3 seconds when you go from 0 to 60 miles per hour. Alrighty, so up next is the moment you've been all waiting for. The number 1 vehicle on this list is another car that goes from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 2.3 seconds, but it's at number 1 because it costs $3 million. And yep, it's none other than the Bugatti Chiron. Yep, these Bugatti Chirons have an 8.0 liter quad turbocharged W16 engine and a 7-speed dual clutch transmission. The engines on these cars produce 1,479 horsepower and 1,180 pound-feet of torque, and these vehicles have a curb weight of 4,400 pounds. So yeah, these Chirons use pretty much the same 8.0 liter quad turbocharged W16 engine that's used in the Veyron, but it's heavily updated. For starters, it does have direct fuel injection. Also, the turbos are larger and designed in a way to even further reduce lag. It also has an improved RPM redline of 7,000 RPMs instead of the 6,500 RPMs for the Veyron. And these vehicles use a different transmission than the Veyron, which is a 7-speed dual clutch transmission. Now, as far as why a high-revving engine is good, well, you know, in layman's terms and generally speaking, when you have your transmission in first gear, that's when you're transferring the most amount of torque from your engine through your transmission and that large gear to your wheels. When you change to the next gear, you switch over to a smaller gear, which can spin faster and help you gain higher speeds, but you reduce the torque that's being transferred from your engine to your wheels. Now, ideally, you want an engine that revs really high so that you can keep your transmission in first gear and achieve whatever speed you want to get to, at the same time getting the maximum amount of torque from your engine to your wheels. But, you know, engines can't, you know, there's a limit to how fast they can rev, because due to heat and friction, you know, engines break down once they reach their threshold. But again, if you can help it, you want an engine that can rev high. If you enjoyed this video and want to support my channel, all you have to do is simply watch another one of my videos. You can either click on this one up top, right here, on the one right below it, or click on and watch any of my videos in the suggestion box. That will help greatly as well. All right, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.